around the corner, or around the globe. Embark on a thrilling journey to some of the most fascinating destinations in the world. Get set to visit exotic sights and thrill to nature's most breathtaking vistas. Meet unique and intriguing people, visit the places you've dreamed about, and marvel at wonders few know exist. Experience the best the world has to offer on World's Most Exotic Travel Destination Videos. In this episode, Hong Kong. It was christened Fragrant Harbor way back when, but today the bustling city is synonymous with wealth, political intrigue, and crowds. Then we escape to the frontiers of Alaska, where we find North America's tallest mountain and a park larger than Massachusetts. In Israel, we'll meet the man who discovered 3,000 years of Jewish history under his house. Encounter denizens of the deep on a luxury picture-taking cruise off Hawaii. Head down under for an adventurous desert safari. And feast on the charm of a Victorian town done New Zealand style. We visit the booming Las Vegas that only Las Vegans know. See just how that famous cheese is made in Switzerland. Learn etiquette for an authentic luau. And tour the Playground of the Stars in exclusive Costa del Sol. All this and more on this episode of the world's most exotic travel destinations.
We're taking you on a special trip to the Fragrant Harbor, which is what Hong Kong means in Chinese. This international crossroads is a magical mixture of ancient Chinese traditions and modern wheeling and dealing. Richard Hart explores this cosmopolitan city of contrasts.
This tiny appendage on the belly of China was deeded to the British in 1898 for a 99-year lease. Since that time, this once barren land, all 405 square miles of it, has grown into a capitalist's paradise of 5.5 million hard-charging chuppies. Hong Kong's first commandment is know how to make money. They call this the vice versa place. All vices elsewhere are virtues here. Materialism, another word for hard work. Greed, another name for consumer demand. And gluttony, just another term for enjoyment. Humble Hong Kong has broken world records for the consumption of expensive French cognac and for the number of Rolls Royces rolling down its streets. It's so crowded that the dead are buried only for 5 years. Then they're dug up and cremated so the grave can be used by someone else. Population density approaches 45,000 per square mile, alleged to be the tightest packed mass of humanity on Earth. Yet it all works, and with amazing efficiency. Cabs take you where you want to go cheaply. Buses and streetcars come by every few seconds. And 747s make one of the hairiest approaches to Kai Tak Airport in the world. Tucked into the thick of Kowloon's crowded tenements, jumbo jets negotiate a hard right turn, skimming just a few feet above the rooftops before touching down on a runway that begins a couple of blocks from a business district and ends in the ocean. Relentless growth will never cede here to the screams of straining jet engines overhead. Maybe that best sums up this place. Fast, crowded, and unrelenting. Yet it has great beauty, serenity, and a dignity for its ancient roots. It's a country of superstitions and lucky numbers. Bad feng shui means that one of the floors on this brand new bank building houses evil spirits, so no one uses that entire floor. And the number 4 is so unlucky that you can dine in the 5, not 4 Seasons restaurant. And this power plant has 5 smokestacks when it only needs 4. One is a dummy. 1/10 of the residents here are Euros, that is, anyone not Chinese. They're expatriates from other countries, spending anywhere from 2 years to a lifetime here, building big bank accounts. Life for them is shops that never close, bars that are always open, private clubs, and servants that have become a necessity. As a cushion to all this affluence and privilege are 5 million hard-working people willing to provide just about anything one's acquisitive heart desires. In that respect, this is an awfully exciting city. You can eat in a floating restaurant, rent companionship in a hostess bar, live like a king on Deepwater Bay, wear a Rolex, drive a Testarossa, own a yacht, make a movie, pet a cobra, or dine on golden dishes and boogie the night away while making a fortune in commodities. all at a fraction of the cost and effort required in the rest of the industrialized world. If there's an ominous sign signaling an end to all this madness, it's the year 1997, the year the lease expires and all this reverts to communist China. It's the topic of everyone's conversation and is even the name of one of Hong Kong's hottest night spots. What will happen is anyone's guess. A borrowed place on borrowed time. That's the nature of life here in Hong Kong, on the belly of the beast.
The Chinese have promised to give Hong Kong semi-autonomous status after 1997 and allow it to continue its capitalist way of life for another 50 years. But many Hong Kong Chinese doubt the communist good faith and have already left for Canada, Australia, and the U.S.
When people describe Alaska, they usually start off by saying the greatest, the longest, or the highest. Alaska is 1/5 the size of the lower 48 states combined, and most of the land is untamed wilderness. Along with the thick forests, there are a few thousand glaciers, including one that's bigger than the state of Rhode Island. Every year, nearly 1 million visitors journey to the land of the midnight sun.
This is the last frontier. Though it's not the polar ice cap that usually comes to mind when you think of America's 49th state, Alaska is a sportsman's paradise. An assortment of activities are available in this vast and beautiful state. The hunting and fishing here is among the best in the world, and visitors come from all over to try their hand at landing a king salmon.
The wildlife is to enjoy. It's like the gift of Alaska. You know, there's places 15 miles from my house that I can hunt for bull moose. If you're a fisherman, the streams are full of fish.
For tourists who carry a camera instead of a fishing pole, Alaska's beauty is the big attraction. Denali National Park is a very popular spot, not only for spectacular scenery, but it also homes some incredible wildlife. Denali is the 3rd largest national park in the U.S., bigger than the state of Massachusetts. In the park, you'll find grizzly bear roaming freely, or maybe even some moose hiding in the shadows. What you'll also find is Mount McKinley, the highest mountain in North America. The Indians call it Denali, the Great One. But it wasn't the scenery that first attracted people here. The gold rush of 1897 brought thousands of fortune hunters to Alaska, attempting to strike it rich. For years, prospectors sifted the riverbeds for golden nuggets. But today, there's also a whole different type of mining. It was yellow gold that first attracted the settlers to the state of Alaska. Today, it's black gold, otherwise known as crude oil. And each day, almost $20 million worth travels through the Trans-Alaska Pipeline from Prudhoe Bay, 800 miles to the south, a stretch of pipe that is actually longer than the state of California. In the past decade, 5 billion barrels of oil have been pumped through the pipeline. That's enough oil to meet Chicago's energy needs for the next 35 years. Many parts of Alaska are so remote, the villagers don't even own cars. They rely on bush pilots to bring supplies. There are very few roads outside of the city, so for many people, these bush pilots are the only source of communication with the rest of the world, bringing them mail, newspapers, and provisions. For many Alaskans, the remoteness is an important reason for living here. For people like Larry Cantil, it makes for an interesting way of life.
What I like about Alaska the most, this is the last frontier. If you're going to go to the most remote place in America, here it is. We're here.
But being in a place that is so remote can make it tough on a family in the dark, cold winter months, especially when the sun is only up for about 3 hours a day.
One winter here is enough to make me just realize that, hey, you know, I can't pretend like I'm trying to get by. I got to get by. You know, when it's 30 below, if you don't have wood in your shed, you know, you're not going to have a fire in your house, and you're going to get cold, and you're going to freeze, you know. It's a simple matter of necessity. It forces you to learn how to take care of yourself.
The winters are what the Alaskans survive. The summers are what they live for, in 22 hours of daylight.
The summertime is when you just throw away your clock. It's like an endless day. You can put things off till midnight and still go out and do them.
Alaska truly is the land of the midnight sun. It's hard to imagine a sunset at 1 in the morning and then a sunrise just a couple of hours later. That's just something most people don't realize until they come here.
Boom! Well, like just about everyone else, I had some preconceived notions about Alaska that just simply aren't true. For instance, I haven't seen a single igloo yet. You'll find those in northern Canada. And this is definitely not a frozen wasteland. It's beautiful here. And you know what else you'll find here? The city of North Pole, Alaska. And as we all know, that's where you'll find Santa Claus. They get thousands of letters here every year from kids all over the world. And if you write early this year, Santa will have time to write you back.
Old St. Nick is lucky enough to have reindeer that fly. But for many Alaskans, getting around in the winter is not a simple task. Many people use dog sledding for their transportation. In fact, this historic Alaskan winter activity has now expanded into a professional sport. Pro racers compete in races such as the Iditarod and the Yukon Quest, a grueling 1,000-mile race between Fairbanks and Whitehorse.
It was the early boats, usually wood-burning steamboats, that developed the interior of so many countries, and Alaska included.
Jim Binkley's family has navigated Alaskan rivers since their gold rush days. Today, the third-generation riverboat family runs the only authentic operating stern-wheeler in Alaska. However, instead of ferrying prospectors like his grandfather, Jim's business depends on summer tourism.
This place is electric. It has all the energy that one finds anywhere or wants to have in this part of the world. You have the freedoms that you don't have, I think, in other places, and you have an openness and friendliness that you only find on the frontier.
The peak tourist season in Alaska is mid-May through mid-September. But if you head up to Fairbanks during the winter, you can see the Aurora Borealis, the northern lights. Watching this is becoming one of Alaska's more popular tourist attractions. Depending on sky conditions, viewers stay up until 4 or 5 in the morning to see the spectacular light show. At some point in time, all of us feel a need to get back to our roots, to explore the cities and towns where our parents or grandparents grew up. But for Theo Siebenberg, it was more than just a desire to learn about his ancestors that attracted him to Jerusalem. As Sarah Edwards finds out, Theo was busy building his future, but what he found was a direct link to his past.
Theo Siebenberg's life could fill the pages of a best-selling book. After escaping from Nazi-occupied countries with his family, he wound up in the United States, where as a young man he amassed a large fortune in the diamond business.
I found myself thinking about what I was really doing. I was making money, and somehow I felt that I was missing the point.
So in 1970, Theo and his wife Miriam moved to Jerusalem to build a house in the old city. It would prove to be an incredible adventure.
I realized towards the end of the construction that this was just a house, but I wasn't quite home yet, and I felt that I needed to go down deeper.
Archaeologists tried to discourage him from excavating under the house because the whole street outside was likely to collapse. Undaunted, Theo built a huge retaining wall, 75 feet thick, going down 4 floors under the building. Almost a year went by with little success as Theo and his workers painstakingly sifted through mounds of debris. Then one day, Theo made the first find, an ancient key ring to a jewelry box.
That seemed to be symbolic in a way, the key to indicate that I was on the right track.
Inspired by their discovery, the work continued for 17 years.
You're enveloped embraced by history, actually, as you live here.
The excavation site is now a museum, and as Theo gave me a tour, I felt like I had stepped into a time tunnel.
This is amazing. What are we seeing right now?
Well, we're inside of an ancient burial vault, which goes back to the time of King Solomon, roughly. It's about 3,000 years ago. The openings that we see above us are were called the nephesh. The soul would rise through this opening, the soul of the deceased, to its permanent resting place. Here we have sections of an ancient aqueduct, the Low Aqueduct, which 2,200 years ago brought water from Solomon's pools for the exclusive use of the temple. What we see there are some of the massive stones that were part of the ancient house that stood here, a massive, big house, a beautiful mansion, really, which was built in the 2nd century before the Common Era, or 2,200 years ago.
As our history lesson continued, we found ourselves in a giant cistern that was originally 5 floors deep.
Now, Theo, 2,000 years ago, what was the importance of a cistern like this to families?
Well, actually, this enormous volume of water was vital to the survival. That was the key to the survival of the people who lived here, as they had to be able to withstand sieges which sometimes took 4 or 5 years.
Ancient artifacts were also uncovered that tell a story about those who lived and died in this area in biblical times. Crucifixion nails, arrowheads, embers from the house that once existed here until the Romans burned Jerusalem to the ground in 70 AD, and an ancient inkwell. Theo Siebenberg followed a dream that unearthed 3,000 years of Jewish history and gave new meaning to his own life. When he and Miriam die, they will leave the house and museum to the city, which Theo feels is a tribute to the Jews who once defended this area.
I think we owe a great debt to them. If it hadn't been for their courage in actually taking on the mighty Roman Empire, the biggest military power in the world at the time, it's not likely that Miriam and I would be here today.
Theo didn't choose this spot for his house because of any archaeological significance. In fact, since land is so hard to come by, he was just happy to have found a site in the old city of Jerusalem. Now, it is required by law to dig down under the ground before you start building a house there. Theo says that because everyone is interested in his artifacts, he plans to write a book about his experience and the treasures he's found. It's hard enough to take a great picture above ground. You have to buy the right film, make sure the lighting's okay, and by all means, keep the camera in focus. But just think what it's like to dive hundreds of feet under the sea and get a perfect shot. Almost impossible, right? Not for Chris Newberg.
For the past 22 years, Chris Newberg has made the Big Island's Kona coast his home. Considered by many the leading underwater still photographer in the business, Chris's office is the world's oceans, and his job is to bring the life beneath the waves to the living rooms of millions of landlubbers.
Yeah, it's just a tremendously exciting job. Every day, it's not like sitting behind a desk. You're going out in some glorious tropical reef with beautiful fish and coral, and you never know what to expect.
What Chris has been able to expect is world-class pictures. His shots have been printed in over 150 different publications like Life and National Geographic. Plus, his book, Within a Rainbowed Sea, has received international acclaim as the most award-winning photographic volume ever published. And it's all because of the way Chris sees the sea.
I don't approach my work as a naturalist. I'm not out there trying to get encyclopedia shots, if you will. I'm trying to get creative artistic shots that are somehow portraying the personalities of the creatures, or perhaps highlighting the strong colors, the graphic textures of the animals. In many cases, I just photograph parts of the animals. The eye of a parrotfish, the fin with the beautiful designs and the colors.
Hey, the visibility looks pretty good.
It really does.
We caught up with Chris on a photo dive off the Kona coast. Accompanied by his wife, Dita, and Captain Bob Curran on his 30-foot Sea Dreams Hawaii dive boat, they decided on a favorite local spot, Kaiwi Point. Here, Chris knew he could count on plenty of fish, good conditions, and an enjoyable dive.
I'll be right down there. So just find me when we're on the bottom. try not to go in the water with too much of a preconceived idea about what I want to shoot. You might say I'm an opportunist when I go down. Helps me keep my mind open, helps keep my creative energies fresh, and I would be more open to new picture opportunities when they come by unexpectedly.
Chris travels over 100,000 miles a year to the best dive spots on the globe for his prized pictures. But whether he's in the Red Sea or just diving in his own backyard, he uses his intuitive sense for the undersea world to help mold his shots.
Many people use cameras as kind of a weapon, but to approach marine life and not disturb it, you really have to sort of almost become part of their environment. You have to drift and be graceful and move slowly rather than an aggressive attitude that would frighten them off. Well, I'm really in love with my work. I get to be in the ocean all day, surrounded by nature. It's a creative occupation. You're creating pieces of art, really, that you can bring back and share with people that have never seen this kind of thing before.
In a profession that has countless numbers of pros and amateurs alike, all looking for the perfect shots, Chris continues to find them. And what's great for everyone is that they're preserved forever.
You can expect more photos from Chris very soon. He's working on another book that will include more sea life.
Beyond Australia's glimmering beaches lies the vast, rugged, desert-like outback. Our Richard Hart got to see this rugged region the way most tourists never do, on a camel.
Ships of the desert, they're still fondly called, the camel. First brought here from Afghanistan 200 years ago. They formed the first road trains bringing people and supplies from Darwin in the north to Sydney and Melbourne in the south. Today, they bring tourists to places like Ayers Rock, to the Olgas and Palm Valley. The man who guides you there is fast becoming a legend here in the center. He's the boss cocky bushranger of the Virginia Camel Farm, Noel Fullerton.
I do for a living what people do for holidays, so I've got a pretty good life.
You like it?
Yeah. We go out on the Christoph and James Ranges, well, I do those ones, and the boys do the Rainbow Valley safaris.
Now, how long does the safari last?
We have them from 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks. Have camels will travel.
Now, camels don't just show up with reins in their noses and saddles on their backs. Noel does that, and it's not a particularly fun time for the camel. The sweet desert flower on top of this half-ton dromedary is Noel's daughter, Alicia, and she's renowned around here as the fastest woman on camelback.
She's run the last 2 Camel Cups in Alice Springs against all comers. She's been injured quite a few times in racing. You ride with the big fellas or you have these things happen.
Unlike many of the other bush safaris, here you guide your own camel.
In the country we go, if you can't ride your camel free, you shouldn't be out there. And ours are adventure travels, and you've got 1 chance in 10 of breaking a leg in the country we go into. But if you come with me, you've got to take your chances.
If you're wondering just how long a camel can go without water, Noel says he's seen one go as long as 2 years.
The camel only drinks to replace the moisture used out of his own body tissue. And he doesn't drink because he's thirsty like other animals.
Noel's been taking his chances for 20 years here in the Never Never. He's raised children and countless camels and endured the heat, the flies, the dust. But the twinkle in his eye and that shock of snow-white beard hint to the visitor of a man in total agreement with his surroundings, at peace with the land, and one with his mount.
For most families, Las Vegas is the ultimate vacation destination. There's a lot to see, a lot to do, and if you don't spend all your time in the casinos, it's pretty easy on your bank account. In fact, the city is so affordable that thousands of families are packing up the station wagon and moving to Las Vegas to live out the American dream. Sit at your little table and I'll get you some juice.
Gee, Mrs. Cleaver, you sure look wonderful today. Almost expect to hear it, don't you? The Lipsman family is just about as all-American as you can get. Susan and Herb and the 4 kids. Travis 8, Shannon 5, Adam 4, and Mr. Personality, Alex, is 2. They are originally from Iowa, last lived in Vail, Colorado, and now live, well, that's where the scenario takes a slight twist, because they now live in...
When we told people we were moving here from Denver, that's the first thing they said. Oh, you're going to be a showgirl, and oh, Herb's going to run a hotel. It's like, no.
And that left sprocket on that side.
For the record, Herb manages a health club in a development called Green Valley. Doesn't sound too Las Vegas, does it? Susan went to nursing school, works in a doctor's office. They moved here 2.5 years ago, and they aren't the only ones, which means... there is a building boom here, the likes of which haven't been seen before. People are arriving quicker than houses can be built. They expect the population to reach 1 million by 1995. There's a waiting list of up to 6 months in some places for a house, but you can't beat the price.
A 2,000 square foot home here, a nice home, is probably in the neighborhood of $130,000 to $150,000.
We're getting a good mix of people coming here for jobs. They're coming for jobs in the gaming industry. They're coming for jobs in the construction industry, and thirdly, they're coming for jobs in the non-gaming industries.
There's at least 10 to 20 years of major growth that's on the drawing board right now and has been approved and so forth. So from a business standpoint, you almost have to be stupid to not make it here.
Now, as anyone who knows Las Vegas will tell you, there is nothing really free here, so it should come as no great surprise that all this growth does have a price tag. And Las Vegans are paying it. They sit in some of it, and they breathe the rest of it, almost every day.
The traffic has never been worse. Not only does the Strip fill up with cars, but access roads leading to a meager freeway system are sardine cans during morning and afternoon commutes. All the cars and buses mean pollution. It's never been worse. There are mountains over there somewhere, and there's something else coming to Las Vegas. Gang violence. LA-type gangs have infiltrated.
It's bringing some problems. They call it progress.
No matter what they call it, there's very little that can stop it, except maybe a lack of water. But they're even looking into getting more of that.
Yeah, when people think of Las Vegas, this is the Strip.
When you want to talk to the movers and shakers in Las Vegas these days, you talk to folks in shirts and ties.
No pinky rings. No pinky rings, no gold chains.
And when you want to visit with Las Vegans, you don't go here. You end up out here.
We have got a great neighborhood. Our neighbors, our doctor, policemen down the street. It's a nice neighborhood.
Gosh, Wally.
Herb and Susan's neighborhood is only 10 minutes away from the Strip, but the only time they go there is when they have guests visiting from out of town.
The height of New Zealand's tourist season is December to February, which is their summer. And if you're traveling through the South Island, be sure to visit the town of Christchurch. It's a touch of England on the other side of the world.
It's called the most English city outside England, a city known as well for its beauty as it is for its character. With a population of 300,000, Christchurch is the third largest city in New Zealand, but it's unique to any other city in the country. Bordered by the Canterbury Plains on one side and the ocean on the other, Christchurch is located in the southern island of New Zealand and was created by English migrants looking for a better world. Today, Christchurch is a thriving port city that blends modern, Gothic, and Victorian buildings into a storybook metropolis. The Avon River wanders through the heart of the city, offering a peaceful rest stop for locals and visitors. At the center of the city is the Cathedral Square, a meeting place for some and a theater for others.
Work is for people of inferior brain power.
With mostly sunny days and mild weather, gardening is one of the most popular leisure time activities. In fact, the residents call Christchurch the Garden City. If they're not in the garden, they're enjoying the outdoors at the massive Hagley Park. Christchurch has a European flavor you won't get anywhere else in New Zealand. It's a little touch of England on the other side of the world.
That man you saw shouting in the town square is known as the Wizard of Christchurch, and he is by far the most popular and controversial celebrity in the country. He claims to be a real wizard, and so far, not even the New Zealand government has been able to prove him wrong.
France has its fine wines, and Italy has its delicious spaghetti sauces. But when it comes to tasting and savoring delicacies, there's nothing quite like the cheese in Switzerland. The Swiss produce over 100 different varieties of some of the best tasting cheese in the world. Now, how do they do it? Pat Brown finds out that quality is the key.
Cheese is big business in Switzerland. 40% of the milk produced here is compressed into cheese, 100,000 tons of it annually. Most of that is either Emmental, the kind with the large holes, or Gruyere, named after the region where it has been made since the 12th century. This is the factory in Gruyere, one of 1,600 like it in Switzerland. Where the entire process used to be done by hand, machines allow the modern cheesemaker to produce over a ton a day. However, critical decisions like when to cut the cheese are still left up to the cheese master.
Why do you enjoy making cheese?
Well, because I'm near everything that is green, and I'm in touch with the milk.
This huge vat of fresh milk will first be heated to 90 degrees. Then rennet, which is an enzyme taken from the stomach lining of unweaned calves, is added to coagulate the milk. When the cheese granules have reached the right consistency, the solution is piped into 16 perforated molds. There, the whey is drained and the remaining cheese is compressed into loaves. The loaves are then transferred to cellars.
Now this is the cheese cellar. It's rather cool in here, and I wish you could smell the aroma, or maybe it's better that you can't because it's very, very strong. Now every 3 days, every single one of these cheese wheels is turned by hand and rubbed down with salt to help in the aging process.
Have you ever wondered where the holes in Swiss cheese come from? The holes in Swiss cheese are formed by gas bubbles given off during the 6-month fermentation. Only the top grade of cheese is sold to ensure its reputation as the finest. Are the Swiss proud? Just ask the cheese master.
Do you eat a lot of cheese yourself?
Oh, yes, a lot. I'm one of the biggest customers.
Aged natural cheese is one of the most complete foods you can eat. Because it fills you up, you won't get hungry fast, even after eating a few slices.
Hawaii has an island culture all its own. Hawaiians have their own pace, their own foods, and even their own language. And as Jan Yanahiro and Richard Hart show us, if you don't learn the proper etiquette, you're gonna look like a tourist.
There are things Hawaiian that can be found nowhere else, particular items and ideas that only seem to work on the islands. First, let's take a look at what we'll call luau rules. Now, if you go to one of the big hotels, or as they say here on the islands, big, more on that later, you might go to a luau show. Now, the luau's typically feature entertainers and dancers from Hawaii and other South Sea islands, and some delicacies found only in Hawaii. The pig roasted in an emu pit is called kalua pork. The sticky stuff you eat with your fingers is called poi. Every time Jan says she likes it, I have to try some, with the same predictable results.
It's really good.
Oh, God.
Poi is the ultimate finger food, and I love it. It's made from taro root and rich. The secret to poi is treat it like cereal. Add some sugar.
Pudding.
Oh, God, that's awful.
You don't like it?
Mahalo, but no thanks. I'm going to stick to the modern foods indigenous to the islands.
Such as?
Well, potato chips. Now, it's not invented here, but there is something special about those good old Maui chips.
And how about taro chips, the same good stuff that poi is made from?
Yuck! Well, maybe better than poi. Oh, look at that. Look at the summer. The native language, of course, is Hawaiian, but it's only spoken today by maybe 1,700 islanders. Traditional Hawaiian chants were used to tell stories and pass on an oral history. But on the streets of Honolulu, you are more likely to come across Pidgin English. Pidgin is a sort of abbreviation slang.
Now, most of it is not too hard to decipher, but the only way to really learn it is to live here all your life.
Kind of hot there today.
Yeah.
Huh?
Now we could jump in the water. We could surf. We could surf.
We could surf. Yeah, let's go surf.
We could surf.
Oh, but I'm kind of hungry.
Oh, you hungry?
Yeah.
We go eat then.
Where you like to eat?
I don't know. We go diners. We go eat diners. Yeah.
I don't like good diners.
Why?
I'd full park my car over there.
Oh, straight. Yeah, your car is big.
Big car, bro.
Big car.
You don't car like on boat. You see my car, eh?
Yeah, I see your car, bro.
Yeah,
Hey, but speaking of boats, bro, check the tuna. The tuna coming around the corner.
Hey, it's not tuna. It's out here, brother. Oh, come over here. Let me call you. Come on, you're not so hard. Come here, baby. Oh, what is that supposed to mean?
Oh, wow.
The islands of Hawaii are all beautiful and each has its own unique character. So there is an urge by some visitors who fall in love with the islands to take a bit home with them.
Madame Pele has something to say about that. The legend is that bad luck will befall you if you take volcanic rock from the islands. Louis Pao, who lost his home to lava, had the best piece of advice.
I would say the saying of take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints is the best motto to follow.
Beautiful energy. You get the blue, get all the different varieties of color, yeah?
It's too bad it would look good on my desk.
It looks beautiful right here.
A few artistic travelers have found a way to leave their mark, creating their own Hawaiian monument before going home to the mainland.
On either side of the highway on the Kona coast of the big island of Hawaii, you'll see Hawaiian graffiti. Only instead of using spray paint, the artist used white coral rocks against the black lava. Check it out, it's organic graffiti.
Some of the things that we think are native to Hawaii were actually introduced by Europeans. Bright flowers, papaya, and pineapple, for example. There certainly is no one thing that defines Hawaii, but when you put them all together, the things that make it different, the traditions, the beauty, the character, you get the aloha spirit. There's no place like it in the world.
Here's some trivia for you. Although most of us are familiar with the 8 major islands of Hawaii, there are actually 132 Hawaiian islands in the chain. One of the most popular playgrounds for the well-known and well-to-do is the sunny city of Marbella on the southern coast of Spain. Movie stars, rock singers, and even royalty all come here, where the international party never ends. Here's Joe Rappaport on the Costa del Sol.
All these different people, you know, from all these countries. This is the fashion spot of the Costa del Sol.
The gold and the Mercedes and the Rolls Royces and the yachts, everything.
All over the world, everybody sooner or later comes to Marbella.
It's been called a man-made city of glitz. It's been called the jewel of Spain's sun coast. It's a town whose name means beauty of the sea. And whether or not you find the town beautiful, what you will find in Marbella are the beautiful people and all their trappings. To reach the center of jet-set life in Marbella, you must follow the Golden Mile. It's a 4-lane highway paved with million-dollar palaces, pricey resorts, and cranes for construction that never stops. At the end of the mile lies Marbella's jewel, Puerto Banús, a magnificent harbor draped in yachts from around the world. If they look expensive, they are. We check price tags with Peter Reeves, a man who's been selling and chartering yachts in Marbella for 12 years.
The cost of yachts, well, in the port obviously varies enormously. Nabilla is 287 feet long and reportedly cost around $50 million. the normal main key boats over on the other side. To build new today would be around $10 million downwards. The charter prices for such things can easily run, for that size of boat, run into $100,000 for a week. That would conceivably include fuel and food. That's for a more modern yacht.
So if yachts are a means to reach this playground, who comes here to play? Well, in Marbella, you don't drop names, but we did hear a few mentioned.
Sade was in Marbella the other day. Elton John.
Mick Jagger used to come here quite a lot.
European soccer stars, obviously, are quite popular here.
Farrah Fawcett was in here, and Ryan was not here.
Sean Connery.
Everybody comes. I don't want to drop names. I think everybody really comes.
And what does everybody do? Well, there are cafes and shops that sell things like $160 jeans, $1,200 dresses, and lots of pricey leather. And after a day of shopping, some people unwind in their $1 million apartments. So you're thinking $1 million apartments? That's right, but have we got a place for you? This little hideaway cost $1,100,000. And what do you get for your money? How about a fabulous view? Or a jacuzzi with a view. You get a total of 7 rooms, all with marble floors, 5 bathrooms, and of course your own fountain in the entryway. But the nicest thing about this apartment is that it's a comfortable place to prepare yourself for the evening, because life in the port really begins after dark.
It starts very late. We're in Andalusia, and nothing starts really before midnight.
Yes, all the world's a stage, and this is the biggest theater in town. Night after night, crowds of people gather to watch the show, talk about the show, and be the show. The rules are simple. If you've got it, don't just show it, flaunt it.
Gotta have a Porsche, a Ferrari, anything convertible, any car that the lid comes on. They've got a Cadillac by a tin opener, really, anything.
We got dragged here in a Rolls Royce.
It's just jumping. It's jumping.
Puerto Banús, the international playground for the rich and silly.
Yes, Puerto Banús, center of the Sun Coast, a jewel that glitters by night and by day.
One of the most fashionable and exclusive resorts on the Costa del Sol is the Marbella Club, owned by Prince Alfonso van Hohenlohe. This $1 million resort is built on 24 acres of prime beachfront property, which he bought 35 years ago for $3,000.
We hope you enjoyed your journey. See you on the next episode of World's Most Exotic Travel Destinations.